a check came in. God forgave my sins. Rapping to myself at night. I just want to be.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to Keith's Hot Takes. And on today's show, me and my guys, Mike and Matthew, we're going to be breaking down the NFL schedule. So first off, Mikey and Matthew, how you guys doing today?
Good.
Matthew, how you doing today, man?
I'm great.
Good. Go ahead and start out by we're going to first talk about the primetime games we're looking forward to the most. And we're going to start out with our Thursday night schedule, which is absolutely loaded. Mikey, we'll start with you since you're at the top here. What are some
Okay.
Thursday night games you're looking forward to this upcoming season?
So to be honest with you, I mean, your opinion might differ from mine, but I didn't actually find but maybe 3 or 4 games that I'm really looking forward to. I think it's week 2, Bills and Dolphins. I'm really looking forward to that one. Surprisingly, week 3, Jets and Patriots. I'm kind of looking forward to that one because I think it'll kind of give us an early sign of what may be to come with Drake May. I don't know if he's still too young that we can see what kind of potential he has, especially that early in the season. But it seems like it'll be a good challenge for him. And then we'll get to see a little bit of Aaron Rodgers in prime time since he got hurt the last time he was in a prime time game. So I'm looking forward to that. The 49ers and Seahawks, looking forward to that one. They're one of my favorite divisional rivalries in the NFL. Texans and Jets should be fun. And then Bengals and Ravens should be a good one. And last but not least, week 16, the Browns versus Bengals. Maybe by then, the Deshaun Watson we used to know will show back up, but he's been a little bit off for the Browns since he's been there. So we'll see.
Those were some good games. Matthew, how about you?
Well, I think the NFL did a terrific job loading up this Thursday night schedule. Obviously, Thursday night football has struggled the last few years with everyone yelling about how terrible the games are. But there's been a lot of reasons for that. But this is a terrific schedule. You mentioned Buffalo and Miami. That was the last game of the regular season last year for the division title in Miami. When the Dolphins had the title won, Buffalo ripped it away from them in the last few weeks, including in that last game on a Sunday night. New England and New York, like you mentioned, maybe we get Drake May, maybe we don't. But it would obviously Amazon is hoping that it will be Drake May. I don't know how much a Jacoby Brissett, Aaron Rodgers game would really sell. But if it is Drake May, that would be good. It'll be the first look of the Patriots without Bill Belichick in prime time. Dallas, New York in week 4 is spectacular. If for any other reason, it is a great rivalry. And hopefully the Giants, I mean, at least they got that game in early in the schedule because the Giants don't exactly look to be a team that's going to be in the playoff race for very long. So get it in early before the season has been detonated. Tampa Bay and Atlanta in week 5. Those two teams are the favorites in the NFC South. That should be a really good game. You mentioned San Francisco, Seattle, Denver, New Orleans. No idea what kind of game it's going to be, but Sean Payton comes back to New Orleans. That's a spectacular subplot for that game. Vikings and Rams played on Thursday night a few years ago in LA at the Coliseum, not SoFi. That was a spectacular game, back and forth, high scoring. Houston and New York, we know what Houston now expects to be. Cincinnati and Baltimore, how fitting is it that those two are playing on a Thursday night again in Maryland, just as they were last year, the game that ended Joe Burrow's season with the wrist injury. Tell you the one I'm really excited about in week 11, Washington at Philadelphia, I think, could very well be an interesting game. First off, hopefully, Jaden Daniels is the quarterback for Washington at that point. Let's see how he's playing. And by week 11, could Washington go into that game in the playoff race? That Washington, with no time left, could have gone for 2 in the win, but didn't. Settled for overtime and lost in overtime, which really ended their season and ended Ron Rivera's opportunity to stay in Washington. So yeah, this Thursday night slate is really, really good. And of course, the one I'm most excited about in Week 14 is Green Bay Detroit. They were on a Thursday night last year at Lambeau. Jordan Love was still figuring things out. They played a pretty bad game. The Lions smoked them. But Jordan Love, we now know what he is. By the time we get to Week 14, not only could that be for the division lead, might be for a 1 or 2 spot in the NFC. Cannot wait for that game.
You both had some good games that you're looking forward to for our Thursday night slate. I kind of am along the same lines as y'all for most of these games. Like y'all said, week 2, Buffalo and Miami. That'll be a good early division test for both teams to see where they're at. I'm not sure how good Buffalo's going to be. They got rid of a lot of talent, so we have to see how good they're going to be. But they still have Josh Allen, so I don't
You
expect
always
them
got
to.
a chance with Josh Allen.
That's true. And then, like Matthew said, week 5, the Bucks at Falcons. I think that's going to be a good one because I think those two are head in class of the NFC South. I think the Saints and Panthers. I think they have a lot of work to do to be contenders in that division.
You
Um,
think the Panthers have a lot of work to do?
a lot of work to
That's
do,
the understatement of the century.
but I do think they'll be better this year. I think they'll win more than what they win 2 games last year. Two.
Yes.
It was like 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe 5 or 6. I think that'd be a good improvement.
Their punter was definitely their MVP last year.
Their brother was there. Let's see. Jets and Texans week 9. I think that's gonna be a really good game. Hopefully, Aaron Rodgers is still healthy and upright by the time we get to week 9. The following week, the Bengals and Ravens. I think that's gonna be a very good AFC North game. That could have a lot of implications on who's gonna win the AFC North. That's about halfway through the season. Then we got week 14. Like Matthew said, I like that Green Bay and Detroit game. We have to see if the Packers can challenge the Lions for that division. I think the Lions are going to be the heavy favorite in the NFC North. And then week 16, I like the Battle of Ohio. We got the Cleveland Browns playing the Cincinnati Bengals. I think that'll be a good game. And also, did you guys mention the Rams and 49ers week 15? Did anybody mention that one?
Yeah, that's
I
a
don't
really good
believe
game
so.
too because the Rams, I don't know if many people remember they were a playoff team last year. They were forgotten most of last year. They made the playoffs, very nearly won a playoff game in Detroit. So um, you would expect LA, especially if they can stay healthy, to be good again. Remember how much they were out without Cooper Kupp last year? You have
Mm-hmm.
him and Puka Nakua on opposite sides of the ball, hopefully. No Aaron Donald, but it's still a really good defense. That could be a really fun game late. And if the Rams can stay close with San Francisco for the division, maybe it's for the division title.
For sure, because I think those two are probably. I don't know how much we're going to get from Seattle and Arizona. I don't know how good either one of those teams will be. So it could come down to those two teams. So we have to see if the Rams can stay close up until that point, because that could be a deciding factor for the division. Let's switch to the Sunday night slate. Matthew, I'll let you kick off here. We got a loaded Sunday night slate. It's a lot of games to pick from. So which ones are you looking forward to?
Well, there's a lot of mouths to feed when an NFL schedule gets set, especially these days when there's so many more Thursday games than there used to be. And we've got 2 on Christmas, which falls on a Wednesday. And there's so many mouths to feed. So it's hard to come up with a perfect schedule. But honestly, when the schedule came out, I thought the Thursday night slate was actually better than the Sunday night slate. Now that's not to say the Sunday night slate is bad. It starts out with that aforementioned playoff rematch between the Rams and the Lions. Matthew Stafford coming back to Detroit. Maybe this time, with it not being a playoff game, Detroit fans will have their chance to say thank you to Matthew Stafford. Chicago and Houston, I can't wait to see what Caleb Williams looks like in game 2. As we'll go on, there's a lot of Houston in prime time. The NFL schedule makers and the networks are putting a lot of faith in Houston this year. We'll see if that backfires or if they're able to pay it off. It always seems like there's a Sunday night game that is very confusing to see why it was put on Sunday night. Last year, that game was Minnesota and Denver. This year, there's a couple of these Sunday night games like, why is that on Sunday night? Kansas City, Atlanta is one of those. That has zero geographical meaning. That's a cross-conference game. It's not in Kansas City. We know games in Kansas City are highly wanted by these networks because of everything that goes on with Kansas City right now. But Chiefs at Falcons is a very strange choice. The other really strange choice is Week 6, Cincinnati and New York. That's the Bengals and the Giants. No one should be subjected to watching the Giants in prime time this year, and unfortunately, we will a couple of times. Now, at least in the Week 4 Thursday night game, it's a good rivalry. It's a classic rivalry, iconic with Dallas. I don't know what importance Bengals and Giants has to anyone. So if you're looking to get into bed early on a Sunday night, maybe pick that night. But again, there are really good games here. There's a couple with Dallas that I want to point out. Cowboys and Steelers are never in prime time because it only comes about every so often. And when it does, Fox and CBS normally protect those games. Those networks are allowed to protect one game each week. And depending on where it's being played at, whether it's in Pittsburgh or Dallas, the network will protect that game because it's such a draw to have Cowboys and Steelers with all their history and the ratings that they always pull. This year, with it being in Pittsburgh, technically that would have been a year where Fox would have been able to protect that game as the dog barks in the background. Good timing. But Fox didn't protect that game this year. So NBC has the opportunity to come up and claim it. They do. So we get Cowboys and Steelers in prime time this year in Week 5. And then, of course, in Week 8, we get Dallas and San Francisco again. You can't go wrong seeing either of those two games. Those are what we call helmet games. Doesn't matter how good or bad the teams are. It's always going to be fun to see the Cowboys and Steelers play and the Cowboys and 49ers play.
Yes, sir. Matthew, quick question. Do you think by the time we get to week 6 that Bengals and Giants game has a chance to be flexed out, or is that too early to flex them out?
No, they can start flexing out Sunday night games after starting at week 5, I think it is. It's either starting at week 5 or after. So they have the opportunity to flex it, but I don't know why you would. If you've set your schedule, and of course NBC doesn't set the schedule, the NFL sets these schedules, but I think it's too early to flex because by the time we get to week 6, the Giants aren't going to be technically out of the playoffs, right? They'll probably come in at 2-4, 1-5 even. Even from 1-5, they can rebound and technically make the playoffs, even if no one believes they can. So no, I would not anticipate that being flexed out. If you'll just bear with me, what are the other games in week 6 that could be flexed to that? Houston, New England, no. Washington, Baltimore, very unlikely. Cleveland and Philadelphia.
Could be.
Maybe.
Honestly, I think a better option would have been Indianapolis and Tennessee. If Anthony Richardson can stay healthy, I think people are going to find out that he's extremely dynamic. And, I kind of like what we saw with Will Levis a few times last year with Tennessee. Detroit and Dallas play that week, but that can't be flexed out. That's the game that Fox protected. Maybe they decide, if they do decide to flex, maybe they go Steelers, Raiders. That would be another helmet game. But no, I don't think that early in the season they'll flex.
Gotcha. Well, yes, I really love our Sunday night slate. We start out week 1, like you said, the wild card rematch between the Rams and Lions. I think that's going to be a dandy of a game. Week 2, Caleb Williams, his first appearance on Sunday Night Football. I think that game has a potential to have a lot of points in it. Both teams have very high-powered offenses. We have to see how good this Bears team is going to be. They've loaded this offense up for Caleb Williams, so we shall see. Week 4, Buffalo and the Ravens. I think that's going to be a really good game. Josh Allen versus Lamar Jackson. I think that's going to be a classic. Like you said, week 5, whenever the Steelers and Cowboys play, that's a helmet game. It's a lot of history between those teams, especially back in the 70s. We played for a couple Super Bowls. The Cowboys and 49ers, I hope this year the game is a lot better because last year they just destroyed us on Sunday Night Football. It got out of hand very quickly. I like the Week 10 matchup between the Lions and Texans. The Texans are going to be in prime time a lot, like you said. So we have to see if they live up to all the expectations and hype. Then we got Week 11. You got Colts and Jets. I think that could be a sneaky good game. Then Week 12, you got the Eagles and Rams. I think that could be another good game. Week 13, we don't know what the weather's going to be like in Buffalo by this time of year. The 49ers visit the Bills. I think that could be a good one. Then we got week 14. We got the Chargers and Chiefs. I think that's always a good divisional rivalry. Those games, anything can happen, especially when you're rivals in the division. And then I think a sneaky good one at the end of the season is the Dolphins at Browns. Both teams feel like will be playoff teams. We have to see. But I think that's going to be a sneaky good matchup at the end of the season. And of course, week 18 is to be determined because usually they try to get a playoff matchup or game that has something on the line. So we have to see what that matchup would be. Mikey, what are some Sunday night games you're looking forward to?
Uh, I mean, probably about half of these games are something I'm looking forward to. Week 1 with the Rams and Lions, I'm really starting to like the Lions, and I think the Rams are, like Matthew said, they were a playoff team last year. They might or might not be, but it's so early on in the season, they're gonna be having more motivation to win starting out than if they were to possibly not be in the playoff race later on. Bears Texans, I think that's more just for ratings as opposed to it being an actually good game. We still have
All the
yet,
games are for ratings though.
yeah,
They don't
but
put the
some of
games
these,
in because they think they're going to be good. It is a ratings game.
fair enough. I don't think that game's going to be close week 2. I think the Texans are going to absolutely obliterate the Bears. Caleb Williams has yet to prove himself, and I'm not going to give him that. I'm not going to give him that because Mahomes wasn't given that until he earned it. So
Yeah, he hasn't proven himself because he hasn't had a chance.
exactly, but Mahomes didn't. Mahomes didn't have a chance, and everybody was saying that he was going to be bad. They weren't automatically hyping him.
I don't.
Caleb Williams has the whole world around him. He's going to be the MVP. He's going to be the greatest quarterback ever, don't you know?
I haven't heard anyone say that.
I will say that
People talk on Instagram. In the comment sections, they'd be crazy.
Well, social media is stupid.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So back to my list. Week 3, Chiefs and Falcons could be an interesting one. Like Matthew pointed out, all these games are for ratings. And I feel like this is one of those games where they'll be like, hey, those 2 quarterbacks were on that show quarterback. So here they are, everybody, and try to get their audience back from that Netflix show. Week 5, the Cowboys and Steelers. I'm looking forward to that one. Week 6, not so much. I don't think the Giants really deserve to have a Sunday night game, but it seems like they give everybody a chance. So what do I know? Week 8, the Cowboys and 49ers. That should be a good one, but I've got the 49ers probably winning by a couple scores in that. Week 9, Jaguars and Eagles. I think that'll be a really good matchup.
true.
Same with week 10, the Lions and Texans. Other than that, it does seem like a just all right schedule. I'm not going to go through all the names of the teams again, but it looks like we have some pretty good matchups on Sunday Night Football. I definitely like these ones more than Thursday night so far. So that's where I'm at with that.
Just to follow up, though, on the Dallas-Pittsburgh, I was mentioning earlier, the networks get to protect a game. So week 5, CBS has the doubleheader. So I just find this interesting. CBS decided to protect Green Bay at the Rams. So CBS likes the idea of doing Green Bay, LA over Dallas, Pittsburgh. I just find, from a sports media perspective, which is basically the world that I live in, I find that awfully interesting. Packers, of course, have a great following. The Rams, they have a solid following, we'll
They
say.
got the people from LA always rooting for them.
But it's shocking to see a network not protect Dallas and Pittsburgh. NBC loved that. NBC probably shouted to the heavens, thanking everything they could that Dallas and Pittsburgh fell to them.
Most definitely. I can't wait for that game. The last time we were in Pittsburgh, it was a very good game, so I'm looking forward to that one. Matthew, I know you live in the broadcast booth, so your answer will probably be a little different.
Well, yeah, so let's start with the national windows in the 425 games. They're the most watched window of the season. More people watch the 425 games than Thursday night, Monday night, or Sunday night. So these are huge windows. And when you start with the CBS side, they went out and protected right away Cincinnati and Kansas City in week 2. It's a game that they've done a lot the last few years with a couple of AFC championship games, a couple of regular season games. So they went out and protected that right away, and it's smart. Week 4, Chiefs and Chargers, the first game against Mahomes and Kansas City for Harbaugh's return to the NFL. That's a big time game. Uh, from just pure nostalgia, the fact that CBS got a Philadelphia Dallas game this year is so fantastic. From back in the day when CBS was the home of the NFC, they had all of the Eagles Cowboys games with Pat Summerall and John Madden or Dick Stockton or Vern Lundquist on those games. That'll be terrific to have Jim Nantz on Philadelphia Dallas. It won't be so terrific having Tony Romo on it because he's terrible, but it'll be nostalgic at the very least having Philadelphia and Dallas on CBS. Obviously, they did their work getting Kansas City Buffalo. That's something that they wanted right from the start. And then one more that CBS protected, Buffalo and Detroit. So CBS and the top crew, Jim and Tony, they had that game on Thanksgiving a couple of years ago, and that's when Detroit was still not Detroit yet, what they are now. But that was a really good game, went right down to the wire. They've got it again. On the Fox side, some of their 425 games, those are going to be the games that you hear Kevin Burkhardt and Tom Brady on. Brady's debut is Dallas at Cleveland. That was a strange choice to me,
Very strange.
just to have it in Cleveland and to have it cross conference, but you knew it was going to involve Dallas for Brady's debut. And Brady's going to have at least 4 Dallas games in that prime window against Cleveland, Baltimore, Detroit, and Philadelphia. I can't wait. Fox got the Super Bowl rematch, Kansas City and San Francisco. It's the first time ever that Fox has ever had a Super Bowl rematch in the following year of the game. So it's going to be terrific hearing Tom Brady do some of these games. That one in particular, Kansas City and San Francisco, I can't wait just overall to see how he translates to the booth in his first year. Obviously, they're going to be doing a lot of rehearsals during the offseason. They probably already have, but being able to hear how Tom Brady is analyzing everything from the booth is going to be spectacular. And yeah,
Oh, it feels like such a treat for us that we're getting that because you don't ever see somebody with that level of expertise really go in on a sport.
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, it's like Wayne Gretzky. He never went into the hockey booth. Michael Jordan never did.
Mhm.
Well, he didn't even want to talk to the media in his days playing. He certainly wasn't going to go into broadcasting. Like, we don't normally get this, and that's going to be so exciting to hear him in the booth for a lot of those games. I hope he gets used to doing a lot of Dallas. When you're the top analyst on Fox, you're going to be doing a lot of Dallas games. Let me tell you.
I agree with Matthew that Tom Brady's going to have some great games in his first year. Uh, Cowboys Ravens in week 3, I think that's going to be a very intriguing matchup because the Cowboys, for the longest, they've struggled against teams like the Ravens who are physical, want to run the ball. That's been their kryptonite on defense. So I'm very intrigued for that matchup. Like Matthew said, the Super Bowl rematch, that's going to be an amazing game because it came down to the wire in overtime. The Chiefs walked it off. So I can't wait for the rematch. Then he's going to get the Lions and Packers in week 9. That's going to be a great game. And then we got I hope Buffalo and the Rams this time around is much better than the last time they played, because the last time they played it was a beating. They just Buffalo just beat them down. And then in week 17, this could decide the NFC East. Maybe we got the Cowboys in Philly, and those games are always great. So we shall see. And then on CBS,
Dallas, Dallas and Baltimore, real quick. It's the greatest quarterback of all time calling a game between two of the most overrated quarterbacks of all time, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. You said it. You said it so we didn't have to.
oh,
I mean, we're gonna hear weeks of I can't wait for Dallas Baltimore, and then it's just gonna be Baltimore is gonna win 37-12 because their defense is gonna bash Dallas's head in, and Lamar is gonna just hand it off to Derrick Henry 73 times.
Yep.
Come on.
that's gonna be. I'm
I
very intrigued.
mean, Dallas and with Dak and Baltimore with Lamar, they're both very elite. They both know how to hand off the ball at an elite level.
But I am very intrigued to see that Derrick Henry, how he's going to impact that offense, because Baltimore for the last couple of years
How is he going to impact their offense? They've been a great running team. I know this isn't a season preview show, but for goodness sakes, Baltimore has been one of the best rushing teams for years, and they still haven't. So the reason they didn't win the Super Bowl this year was not that they couldn't run the ball. So why did they go out and get another running back? They've been running it with 5 people the last few
Yeah,
years.
they didn't need to add him on board. He can't really catch it out of the backfield. So he's
No,
not giving them any extra dimensions
no,
to their offense.
he's not
like
like a
he's
Kareem Hunt
he's
or
not a difference
No.
maker for a team that already could run the ball. But again, Lamar has to step up, and I'll believe it when I see it. Anyway, carry on.
all right. And then on CBS, I'm looking forward to all the Chiefs matchups that Jim Nantz and Tony Romo have. I, I'm looking forward to week 2 Bengals and Chiefs. That's always a classic between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes. I'm glad we're getting it early because Joe Burrow has had a hard time staying healthy for the Bengals the last couple years. Like you said, week 4, Harbaugh, his first chance to face the Chiefs. How much is he going to change that team? I think year 1 they may struggle because they lost a lot of talent on offense. So we shall see. I think week 8, the Eagles at Bengals, I think that could be a sneaky good game. Two teams that are going to be favored to win both their conferences, so that should be a good one. Baltimore and Philly, that should be another good one. And then the last one that Tony Romo and Jim Nantz have is the 49ers at Dolphins right before Christmas. I think that'd be a good one. Maybe a Super Bowl preview. You never know.
No, no, no. Miami, I'll believe it when I see it.
That's
Yeah,
how
Tua's gonna have to prove himself.
that that's how it's been with Miami for the last couple of years. You know,
Just about anyone in the AFC other than Kansas City and Cincinnati, I'll believe it when I see it.
yeah, because really
I agree with that.
nobody else has been able to challenge the Chiefs really on a consistent basis besides Joe Burrow every
Well, and
year.
of course, Miami, they need badly to get home field. They need to get that number 1 seed because they can't play in the cold.
Oh yeah, that
They've
game
never been able to play in the cold. That's not a Tua or Tyreek thing. And Miami's never been able to play in the cold.
that
Do you
that
think
that
it's something they could learn to be better at, or do you think because they live in Miami, they're just
Yeah,
stuck?
I think when you live in Florida year round,
probably not.
hard to adjust. I mean, the Kansas City game last year was like an extreme. Obviously, I mean, people were getting frostbite
Yeah,
attending that game, but I mean,
That was
they've
scary.
got Green Bay. Aren't they in Green Bay on Thanksgiving? Like it's gonna be cold. They've got to get home field, Miami, I think.
Yes, they are in Green Bay on thing. Ooh, so Lord knows what it's gonna be like on Thanksgiving in Green Bay. It
gonna
probably
be
won't
a
be too.
butt whooping.
It probably won't be too cold yet, but it's just gonna be in the 20s probably on Thanksgiving night. But to wrap up on this first segment, what Monday night games are we looking forward to? I know that we have some decent matchups on Monday Night Football. So who wants to lead it off here?
I'll let Matthew go first.
All
Oh,
right. We'll let the
okay.
GOAT go first. All right.
Oh boy. Well, everybody's going to look towards Jets and 49ers for the many obvious reasons. So I'll move on from that. I'll let you guys take Jets and 49ers. Um, Washington and Cincinnati. I don't know if people thought that that game would end up in prime time anywhere, but I'm glad it did. That's two former Heisman winning LSU quarterbacks in Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. Uh, what kind of start is Washington going to get off to? That's in week 3. That's one of the Monday night doubleheader weeks. But what kind of start is Washington going to get off to, and how do they go into that game? I think is very important because they start the season at Tampa and then at home against New York. It's not out of the realm of possibility they go into that game in Cincinnati 2-0. And if they do, everyone's going to start talking, oh, Jaden Daniels, look at what he can do. And Washington, are they legit? And they go into Cincinnati. I think that could be an intriguing game. The very next week is Tennessee at Miami. Remember, that was on a Monday night last year in Miami, and the Dolphins had that historic comeback. I mean, or the Titans rather had that historic
Mm.
comeback, and that was really the beginning of the end for Miami's season. Um, and again, like I said earlier, there's a lot of mouths to feed. You're not going to get every single game in prime time is going to be great. There's some strange ones out here, like New Orleans at Kansas City is strange. So Kansas City plays the entire NFC South this year. 3 of those 4 games are in prime time, which I find strange. They're at Atlanta
Yeah.
on a Sunday night, and then they get Monday night games against New Orleans and Tampa Bay. And I guess the game against Carolina is going to be flexed to midnight on a Thursday on the moon. But I mean, that's just those are 2 strange games. And I know you guys are going to talk about Houston and Dallas. That's going to be super intriguing in week 11. And I'll turn it over to you guys after this one. You guys can take a whole bunch of these. I won't ramble on. But Chicago and Minnesota, week 15. Will that be Caleb Williams against J.J. McCarthy, a pair of rookie quarterbacks deep into the season? Are any 0-1, both of those teams in playoff contention? That could be a really interesting game. Oh, by the way, I don't know why they decided to get cute on the ESPN Plus exclusive game. So ESPN Plus has had an exclusive game the last few years, but it's been a London game that they've used it on. This year they didn't do that. So ESPN Plus has an exclusive game week 7. They decided to make it Chargers Cardinals. Okay, fine. You get Harbaugh, you get Herbert. We get to see Marvin Harrison with Arizona. Is Kyler Murray gotten any better? Is Arizona as a whole gotten any better? The game's starting at 9 o'clock.
Good gracious.
Like,
Oh, yeah, I see that.
yeah, I I'm too old for that. Like, I'll be at bed at halftime of that game. Maybe not even halftime. Like, I get it. It's in Arizona. It's 2 West Coast teams, but 9 o'clock. That's when Monday night games used to start all the time. Thank God they changed that.
Yes, indeed. So I agree with you, Matthew. I'm looking forward to that week 3 game between Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow. Like you said, 2 former Heisman winners for LSU. I think that could be a very good matchup. Then we go down to week 6. We got the Bills at the Jets. I think if Aaron Rodgers is still upright, I think that could be an early indicator of who wins the AFC East. Then we go down to week 11. Like you said, the Battle of Texas,
Yes.
the Houston Texans at the Dallas Cowboys. I'm a very unbiased Cowboy fan, and I will admit the Texans are the better team right now. They've gotten a lot better this offseason while
You
we've been
did more than what a normal Cowboys fan would do. You admitted the truth.
while we've been asleep at the wheel and done absolutely nothing in free agency to get better. We'll save that for another day. But that's going to be a very good matchup. So I'm looking forward to that one. Then the battle of the Harbaugh brothers the following week, Ravens at Chargers. That's going to be a very good one. Then we go down to week 14. We got Joe Burrow coming to Dallas to play the Cowboys. And then the Lions at 49ers. That's going to be a very good game. We know how the Lions were up big in that game, and then the 49ers just stormed back on them after the Lions had some mental errors that just broke down, and they made some mistakes you can't make in the playoffs because you pay double for them. So those are the games I'm looking forward to. Mikey, I'll pass the mic to you, my guy.
So I got Falcons and Eagles in week 2. I think it has the potential to be interesting. We're getting one of our first looks at Kirk Cousins in a Falcons jersey, and we're seeing if he can possibly get the Falcons into playoff contention early by upsetting Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley. So we'll see how that one goes. Jags and Bills, week 3, it might have the feeling of a wild card matchup. Me being a Chiefs fan, having Monday nights off work, I'm excited to see them in weeks 5 and weeks 8. Though the opponents that we have are not that strong. The Saints don't look like they'll do much. They might be in the top 10 of worst teams by the end of the year. The Bucks are more competitive than last year, but I got to think if the Bucks didn't play that Super Bowl against the Chiefs, I don't know that this goes to Monday night.
True.
Washington versus the Bengals should have at least a few fun highlights from both teams. We may get a flash in the pan from Jaden Daniels. I'm not sure if we're going to see them contend with the Bengals the entire game or if it's just going to be a bit of it. Bills and Jets in week 6 might be a decent game. It's a rivalry game. We'll see if Aaron Rodgers is still healthy by then. It's not too far into the season, and prayers up that nothing happens to him again this year. But yeah, I think that one should be decent. I'm not going to call it a great game because we don't know yet how good the Jets are going to be. Week 11, I look forward to the Battle of Texas. It's Friday Night Lights on a national stage. Week 12, two of my favorite competitors in the sport going head to head. Neither is very clutch in the playoffs, but both are capable of putting on the cape and carrying their team when they need to. From the Chargers and Ravens, that is. Week 14, there's a great young quarterback taking the field against one of the most overrated, under-criticized quarterbacks of all time. The subpar, the overrated Dak Prescott going against Joe Burrow in Cincinnati.
Excuse me, timeout. Mikey, you do realize that when you are the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, you you always get criticized.
Oh,
You're always like,
I've never seen Dak actually take any criticism.
oh man.
I've always just heard, oh well, the Cowboys didn't have enough help this year. They need to go get wide receivers.
Well, obviously you should watch these talk shows. That's all they do is tear Dak down.
Well, good, they're doing their job then.
Go ahead, proceed. Sorry.
Okay, and Detroit and San Francisco in week 17 could be a revenge game potentially for the Lions, but there is also a chance that the Lions are around or under 500 by this time this matchup comes around. Because we see a lot of teams like the Lions where they'll have a really good season, and then their franchise doesn't have a lot of success going for it. So the year after they have a big year, they end up taking a huge step back. So I think there's a chance that this is either going to be a revenge game for the Lions against the 49ers, or else the Lions are just going to be terrible by that point. But holding out hope that they're actually a good team.
Mikey, I don't know if you've been under a rock, brother, but did you just see all that money that they just paid Jared Goff? They better not be trash.
Well, they better not be trash, but they overpaid for him. I don't know what you want me to tell you.
We can. I mean, that's what the market is for a quarterback these days. You got to overpay.
He's a play action passer. He's not somebody that's going to spread them and have 5 wide receivers wide and go under center by himself.
But for that matchup, I was thinking that could be a potential indicator who's going to win the number one seed in the NFC. But you was saying that the Lions may be getting the trash bags out after that game, clean out their locker.
There's a chance.
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Alrighty, guys. So we did a great job covering the primetime matchups that we're looking forward to. So let's talk about my favorite topic of the day, revenge games. Mikey, I hope you included Raiders and Chiefs on your revenge list because you know the Raiders went into Kansas City last year when I didn't think they had a chance of winning with Aiden McConnell as their quarterback and beat the Chiefs. Do you have that on your list?
I don't have that on my list just because the Chiefs took so many L's in the regular season last year that they don't normally take. I have Detroit and San Francisco as one in Week 17. Um, I have the Chiefs versus Steelers just because we used to really struggle against them when Alex Smith was playing. So I consider that a revenge game just for me. Um, and I don't really have too many revenge games that I listed just because I don't think a lot of them really fit that.
Yeah, the ones that the NFL put on their thing, I thought some of those were kind of stupid, to be honest. But, but the ones I put, obviously, when Russell Wilson makes his return to Denver, things took a very sour, ugly turn with him and Sean Payton. So we'll have to see how that matchup goes. That's going to be a very interesting matchup. Then I put Aaron Jones returning to Green Bay. I was shocked that they, moved on from Aaron Jones and they signed Josh Jacobs. But, Aaron Jones has had some injuries of late. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. So I know he's going to be very motivated for that game, week 4. Stephon Diggs, when the Bills come to visit him week 5, him and Josh Allen, their relationship it just took a bad sour turn as well. He wasn't getting the ball. He was frustrated every time we would look on the sideline. You would see him screaming at Josh Allen, and he would just be losing his mind. And obviously, Stephon Diggs, he had some big drops against the Chiefs in that playoff game that did not help him. So I think a fresh start was very much needed for him after that playoff game where he dropped that bomb from Josh Allen that was going to be a touchdown. And he just wasn't getting his normal targets and he wasn't happy in Buffalo anymore. So that's going to be a very interesting game. Then we have week 7. The Eagles visit MetLife Stadium and visit the Giants. Saquon Barkley signed with the Eagles after being in New York for the majority for his whole career, and Giants fans have not took this signing very well. They've called him a traitor. They've called him some other names I cannot repeat on air. They've been very sour and salty about Saquon obviously going to the division rival. So I know Saquon will probably get some loud boos, some vulgar language said to him when he returns week 7 to MetLife Stadium. And obviously, I said the Black Friday game between the Raiders and Chiefs because the Raiders went in there and beat the Chiefs last year when the Chiefs. They just were struggling on offense. The receivers wouldn't catch the ball, and that was the reason why they lost a bunch of their games. We don't have to bring that trauma up for you, Mikey, again. So yeah, those were the revenge games I had. Obviously, they had Kirk Cousins playing the Vikings. They had Derek Carr playing the Raiders again. They had some matchups like that. I wasn't really looking forward to those as much because I probably won't be looking at those games. But those are some of the ones they had listed. Matthew, what about you? What revenge games are you looking forward to?
You mentioned Pittsburgh and Denver. I think I find that highly entertaining. Week 2 of the season. Will Russell and Sean shake hands
I wouldn't.
after the game? Sean Payton went in, took that job knowing that he didn't want Russell Wilson as his quarterback. Why take the job? I don't know, but he did.
Sure.
And
He probably has a lot of loan sharks that he owes some money to.
I mean, he could have gotten a lot of other jobs, but instead he took the job for a team that he knew he didn't want the quarterback that they had. Just ridiculous, really. Not absolving Russell Wilson of anything. He was terrible in Denver.
Say it again.
Yeah, he was. He was terrible in Denver, and the things that came up with Denver were the same things that came up in his last years in Seattle of he's not a good teammate and his teammates don't like him, and it's like him and everybody else in the locker room. So it's a very interesting subplot to that Denver and Pittsburgh game. You mentioned Atlanta, Minnesota. I can't believe that you're not looking forward to that actually. I mean, that's Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota is going to be a huge deal. Um, Especially because of what he did for the Minnesota franchise, for how much Atlanta just paid for him,
Ooh,
for JJ McCarthy now being a Viking, and for the fact of what Atlanta then did with their first round draft pick, which was one of the dumbest things that have ever happened in the history of the NFL draft. There are so many stories to that Atlanta Minnesota game, and that's just going to be fabulous television. The drama is going to be like like one of those soap operas. And then night one of the season, Baltimore and Kansas City. I mean, the Ravens talk such a big game, but they never win the big game.
mm.
Can they go in to Kansas City and finally stick their chest out and say, this is our conference? I know they won they got the top seed last year. What great things that did for them. They lost at home in the AFC Championship game. So, okay, you've added Derrick Henry, sure. Has Lamar Jackson gotten better? At some point, Baltimore's got to actually act like a tough team rather than them talking like a tough team and everybody else saying how great they are.
I think Lamar's already hit his ceiling.
Oh my.
Well, and he's already did 2 MVPs. I mean, MVP's a stupid award anyway that goes to
Yeah.
only quarterbacks these days, just like the Heisman. But and then you mentioned Giants and Eagles. I mean, those two don't. The two cities don't like each other. The teams don't like each other. Yeah, that's going to be real theater, especially when they go to New York. It's going to be real theater. Don't forget about Dallas and Washington too. Dan Quinn, now with
Oh yeah.
Washington after being the
Yes.
Dallas defensive coordinator. They go to Dallas week 18. They're in Washington week 12. So you got to wait a little bit for those games.
Yes, and I'm intrigued to see Saquon. We know how bad the Giants' offensive line was. I'm intrigued to see how he's going to look behind the Eagles' offensive line, which I would say they
Oh,
have the best offensive line.
yeah.
So that's going to be
How
intriguing.
much help does Jalen Hurts need?
I mean, we want to have as much help as you can have on offense. You can never have enough help. I mean,
Yep. But he doesn't deserve all the credit like he got that year that the Eagles made it to the Super Bowl.
but yes, Matthew, I agree with you. That's going to get your popcorn ready for Week 7 when Saquon and Eagles go to New York. Uh, I don't know how good New York will be, but just the fans and them going after Saquon and some of the things they're going to be chanting at Saquon for 3 hours. I just can't wait for that. Mikey, I know you're looking forward to this next segment because we're going to be predicting the Chiefs' record, and hopefully you don't say 17-0.
I was tempted. I was sure tempted to.
But Mikey, I'll let you get first dibs on this one. What do you think your Chiefs' record is going to be this year?
So I decided to land on a little bit more of a modest 15-2. I think they're going to lose to the Texans and to the Bengals, and I have them winning every other game besides that. I think the Chiefs are going to start out 1-1 after having the hardest 2 game start to a season probably ever, going against the Ravens and then the Bengals. So yeah, I got losses to the Texans, to the Bengals, but everybody else I think we're going to be able to beat. I do think there's a chance that they either go 14-3 or 13-4, just because I know the Raiders always like to play us tough, and same with the Chargers. The Chargers, whenever we play them, there's very few punts. There's scoring on almost every possession, but they're like possessing the ball for like 7 minutes at a time. So I think there's a chance that the Chargers upset the Chiefs, but I'm not going to go with that. I'm going to go with 15-2 since they're my team, and yeah, I think they're going to clinch the number 1 seed and be hosting the AFC Championship again next year.
All right. I think I personally I like the 13-4 or the 14-3 because I think the division games are going to be a little harder this year. I definitely think they'll sweep the Broncos again because I think the Broncos probably won't win 4 games this year. I'm gonna be honest. But I think, like you said, the opening of the season, those first 2 games, I think they'll split those. But this year they've added Hollywood Brown and they got Xavier Worthy in the draft, and that's just gonna be cheating basically to have him
They
pair with.
drafted a pretty good tight end out of TCU as well. Kind of excited to see him play.
Yes, so Andy Reid with those new toys, it's gonna be very fun to watch what he does with his new toys. But yeah, I think 13-4, 14-3, I think that'd be a very good record for the Chiefs because although they do have some tough games mixed in here, Ravens, Bengals, 49ers, the Bills game is always tough, Texans, I think the Chargers they'll be tough, and like you said, the Raiders they always seem to play them tough in Kansas City for whatever reason. I don't know what it is, but they just seem to always get up for that game more than the game at home. I don't know what it is, but the Raiders still don't have a quarterback, so I don't know if they'll be ready to beat the Chiefs again this year like they did last year. But we'll have to see. Um, and yeah, I think those are really the only games on this schedule that are up in the air for the Chiefs. Are those games? The rest of these games, I think they should win. Like you said, they got the NFC South, so I think they'll sweep the NFC South. And they play the AFC North. Those games could be kind of tough, but I think they'll win the majority of those games. Matthew, how you feeling about the Chiefs' record this year?
I think they're going to go 15-2. Um,
Okay.
I I see them losing week 4 at the Chargers because really this is the only reason. All of those games between the Chiefs and Chargers, the last 3 or 4 years have been so close, could have gone either way, and a whole bunch of them were lost by the Chargers because they had a buffoon as a head coach. Now they have a legitimate head coach, and I just think the law of averages tell you they've nearly won all of these games against the Chiefs in the past with quite possibly the worst head coach in NFL history. Now they've got an actual coach. I just think the law of averages say they'll win one of those games. So I'll say that Kansas City loses at LA week 4, and I think they lose at San Francisco week 7, and I think that's it. I don't they're gonna beat Baltimore again. We need to stop acting like Baltimore is ever going to beat them on a big stage.
I'll have to
I
see it
think
to believe
they'll
it.
I think they'll beat Kansas City because it's a game at home. That's obviously a tight game, but at home, Kansas City will win. They'll have no problems with any of the NFC South teams. They'll have any problems with Las Vegas. Like you said, who are the Raiders going to put in at quarterback? They're not going to have any problems with Denver. I don't think they have any problems at Buffalo. The Bills have gotten marketably worse in the offseason. What's the games I'm missing? I'm missing at Cleveland. Okay, the Browns defense could slow them down, but I don't see. First off, is Deshaun Watson going to play when we get there? Um,
True.
if he is, favor the Chiefs by 3 touchdowns because Deshaun Watson is not good anymore. If he's not playing, I mean, they're in the market for hiring old quarterbacks. Maybe Cleveland will sign, I don't know, Brett Favre this year. Um, then they play Houston on Christmas. Again, that's a home game. I don't think they're going to lose that game at home. No, that's not Christmas. I'm sorry. It's the week
That's
before Christmas. The
that's a
Christmas game's
Saturday.
at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's a joke. So yeah, 15-2.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, Mikey. We were talking before the show. The Chiefs are going to play on 6 days of the week this year, every day except for Tuesday. So that's going to
Yeah,
be that's for the first time in almost 100 years that's happening. The last team to do it was the New York Yankees in 1927.
But
Steelers don't win.
also remember, look at the Chiefs' schedule and look at the games they have as standalone games, including this Pittsburgh game. I don't think the networks want the. I think the networks went into the Kansas City schedule this year and said, we really don't want to have Chiefs games that are going to be close. I'll explain. They're at Atlanta. They could win that game by 20. They host New Orleans on a Monday night. They could win that game by 30.
Oof.
They host Tampa Bay on a Monday night. That should be a comfortable win. The Black Friday game is Vegas. They might win that game by 70. And then they get the Christmas game against Pittsburgh. Like I said, the Steelers are a joke. I think the networks went into the game saying, we don't want close Chiefs games. We would rather them in a game that they should win comfortably, which gives us more time to point our little cameras at Taylor Swift up there doing absolutely nothing.
You're probably right.
I think I'm not really joking. I think that's a legitimate thought by these networks. We want the Chiefs to be up 48-10 in the third quarter so we can get as many Taylor Swift shots as possible. In one of these games, I swear to you, one of these games is going to be such a blowout where the networks want to stop the football game and just put Swift in the middle of the field for a concert.
Which one is that? The Raiders?
It could
Maybe.
be.
Black Friday concert. Yeah, T-Sizzle. Go on.
Because like we've said, I think they're going to start Gardner Minshew at quarterback.
Oh,
they
I
didn't
love me
draft
some Gardner Minshew.
they didn't draft the quarterback, so I'm assuming that's who's going to start. It's always fun when we all get together. We have a big old laugh and talk about sports and everything else that's going on in life. So I just want to thank you guys for coming on the show, and hopefully we get together. Hopefully we can get together during football season a couple Sundays and predict some NFL games.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
So that does it for this episode of Q's Hot Takes. I want to thank my brothers Matthew and Mike for coming on, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.